The courthouse was packed that Tuesday morning, but no one expected what was about to unfold. Karen strutted in through those double doors like she owned the place, arms loaded with three massive binders, a smug smile glued across her face. She'd been planning this moment for months, convinced she was about to deliver the legal victory of a lifetime. As the newly elected president of the Willowbrook Homeowners Association, she'd made it her mission to bring every property in the neighborhood under her iron grip. She positioned herself at the plaintiff's table with theatrical precision, arranging binders just so, smoothing her blazer, and the confidence radiating off her was almost tangible. Karen glanced around the courtroom, savoring what she thought was her moment of triumph. She'd spent weeks preparing her case, rehearsing arguments in the mirror, already picturing the look on my face when the judge ruled in her favor. But none of us had any clue that her whole world was about to collapse in less than 3 minutes. You see, I held one document in my hand that would completely unravel everything she believed about property law, HOA boundaries, and her so-called kingdom. The smug smile that had been her trademark was about to vanish forever. When I handed the certified plat map to the judge, the entire courtroom shifted, like a sudden storm rolling in. The judge's eyebrows lifted slightly as he studied the document, and I saw Karen's confident expression falter. She leaned forward, trying to catch a glimpse of what I'd just laid down, but it was already too late. The judge looked at her with a stare that could freeze fire, and right then, Karen knew she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. 3 minutes later, the case was dismissed with prejudice. Karen sat frozen, mouth hanging open like a fish gasping for air, as the judge delivered his ruling. Not only had she lost spectacularly, but she'd also opened herself and the entire HOA board to potential legal trouble that could haunt them for years. The woman who'd terrorized half the neighborhood with power trips and legal threats had just been handed the most humiliating defeat imaginable. But let me back up a sec. 6 months before that courtroom showdown, life was completely different. I'd just closed on my dream home, a beautiful 3-bedroom ranch on a quiet street in what I thought was the perfect neighborhood. The backyard was spacious, oak trees offered natural shade, and best of all, it was outside any homeowner association boundaries. That last part was crucial to me. I'd spent 2 years hunting for a place that gave me freedom, no HOA rules, no meddling neighbors telling me what color to paint my mailbox or how tall my grass could grow. During the buying process, I was meticulous. My real estate agent reassured me repeatedly. The house was in an unincorporated area, free from those typical HOA shackles. I requested and reviewed property deeds, plat maps, everything to confirm I wasn't stepping into a trap. The idea of painting my house any color I wanted, planting whatever garden I dreamed of, parking wherever I pleased was more valuable than any community pool or clubhouse. The first few weeks were absolute bliss. Mornings spent sipping coffee on the back patio, birds chirping in the oak trees, planning my next little project. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful, with neighbors who minded their own business. I thought I'd finally found my slice of suburban paradise. Then Karen showed up. It was a sunny Thursday afternoon when she knocked on my door. Early 50s, perfectly styled blonde hair, dressed like she just stepped out of an upscale boutique. But those eyes, cold, calculating, like a predator sizing up her next meal. She introduced herself as president of the Willowbrook HOA and launched into what she called a welcome tour for new residents. Then came the catch. While my property was technically outside the HOA boundaries, she expected me, and everyone else around, to uphold their community standards. She handed me a thick packet of rules and regulations, wrapped in a not-so-subtle suggestion that I join the HOA voluntarily, for the good of the neighborhood, that I politely, but firmly told her no. I bought my house specifically to avoid HOA restrictions and monthly fees for services I didn't want or need. Karen's smile tightened, and I could practically see the gears turning in her head. She wasn't used to hearing no. From that day on, Karen made it her personal mission to make my life miserable. It started with passive-aggressive notes on my car windshield, complaints about my grass height, the mailbox color, you name it. She'd walk past my house multiple times a day, snapping photos of my property like a detective on a stakeout. I even installed security cameras to document her strange behavior. Guess what? She complained to the police about me invading her privacy. Things escalated fast. Official-looking citations appeared on my door, with HOA letterhead accusing me of violations. Having a basketball hoop in the driveway, parking my truck on the street, planting sunflowers without approval. Each citation came with hefty fines and threats of legal action if I didn't comply immediately. I tried reasoning with her, showing my property deed, plat maps proving my home was outside HOA jurisdiction. But Karen was beyond reason, obsessed with control, blinded by ego. The breaking point came when she called a special HOA board meeting about non-compliant properties, inviting me to attend under the guise of dialogue. Against my better judgment, I went. The meeting was held in a nearby community center. Karen sat at the head of a long table, flanked by 6 board members. It felt less like a friendly neighborhood chat and more like a tribunal, with Karen as judge and jury. She launched into a presentation about property values, community standards, enforcement, complete with photos of my violations. The other board members nodded, intimidated by her intensity. When my turn came, I calmly presented my evidence: original plat maps, property deed, even a letter from the county assessor confirming the HOA boundaries. Karen waved it off, claiming property lines didn't matter when it came to community harmony. The meeting ended with an ultimatum: join the HOA and pay all fines or face legal action. Karen gave me 30 days to do the right thing. The board members sat in awkward silence, clearly aware she'd overstepped but too scared to say anything. That I left knowing Karen wouldn't back down. She'd invested too much of her ego in this fight. But I also knew she'd made a critical error, escalating to threats of lawsuits. Over the next weeks, Karen's harassment became borderline stalking, driving by multiple times a day, taking photos, leaving citations. She contacted my employer, spreading rumors that could harm my professional reputation. She even flooded neighborhood social media with complaints, painting me as a troublemaker. Then, the final blow: a formal lawsuit delivered by process server on a quiet Sunday morning. Karen watched from her car across the street, clearly thrilled by the drama. Her lawsuit was a legal mess, demanding I join the HOA retroactively, pay over $20,000 in fines and penalties, and damages for supposedly lowering property values. Instead of panicking, I spent 2 weeks methodically gathering every scrap of evidence I could find: county courthouse records, certified plat maps, HOA history, covenants. The key document was a recent county assessor survey showing my property clearly outside the HOA boundary by more than 200 feet, separated by a natural creek. That I learned the original Willowbrook residents had voted to exclude my street from the HOA to avoid management headaches, and that exclusion was properly recorded and never overturned. Armed with this irrefutable proof, I prepared for what I knew would be a quick court hearing. No fancy lawyer, just facts and documents. That on the day of the hearing, Karen arrived late, flanked by a paralegal, 3 binders in hand, looking every bit the confident warrior ready for battle. She launched into a passionate speech about the importance of HOA rules, community standards, and how I was selfishly destroying neighborhood harmony. The judge listened patiently, asking clarifying questions. Karen answered with authority, certain she had an airtight case. Then it was my turn. I calmly approached the bench with my manila folder and explained that Karen's entire case hinged on a fundamental legal error. She was demanding jurisdiction over property outside her association's boundaries. That I handed the judge the certified plat map, original covenants, and my deed. The judge's expression shifted from polite interest to mild surprise, then to barely contained irritation. That he looked at Karen, still smiling confidently, and asked if she'd reviewed the property lines before filing suit. She claimed they were irrelevant, insisting HOA had a moral duty to enforce standards beyond legal limits. The judge's patience snapped. He explained that HOAs are legal entities with strict boundaries that can't be ignored or expanded by personal preference. Karen's lawsuit demanded authority over property she had no jurisdiction over, an error that invalidated the entire case. Karen tried to argue, but the judge cut her off. The courtroom fell silent as he delivered the ruling. The HOA had no jurisdiction over my property. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, and any future attempts to claim jurisdiction would be frivolous litigation subject to sanctions. He warned Karen that continued harassment could lead to restraining orders or even criminal charges. Karen stood there stunned, her trademark smile gone, replaced by shock and panic. She'd never imagined losing so decisively or facing such consequences. The judge concluded by saying HOAs serve an important role within legal boundaries, but become